Thank you, Jeanine.
Fellow Toastmasters, when my son was about 18 months old, he did what most toddlers start to do. He started trying to figure out how to express his frustration with things he had no control over. He threw his first temper tantrum. He found it less than satisfying, since not only did he not get what he wanted, he also got in trouble. He only did that a couple more times before he decided to try something different. So one day, he asked Mom for a cookie, and Mom said, no. And he threw himself on the floor, and we had nice hardwood floors, and he hit his head against the floor. Boom! And he cried. Well, he didn't get a lot of sympathy, but he didn't get in trouble. So the next time, he still didn't get his cookie, by the way. The next time he got upset, he did this again. He didn't cry quite as hard this time. But he still didn't get in trouble. Still didn't get any sympathy either. Never got sympathy for banging his head against the floor. Over a period of months, Brandon got very good at doing this. So much so that it never hurt when he did it anymore, but he had a permanent dime-sized bruise right in the middle of his forehead. And he always looked like, I mean, it wasn't like he just went and bumped his head. He would get down on the floor and boom! And you just, I mean, you could hear this thing hitch. And if he couldn't find the floor, he'd go for a walk. He'd gotten to the point where he didn't even feel it anymore, but it made him feel better because he expressed his frustration. Well, one day my mother came to visit, and at the time my mother was using a wheelchair. You know, one of those scooters that has a bumper on the front end of it? And Brandon went to Grandma, whatever it was he wanted that day, you know, cookie. She said, no, Brandon, dinner's almost ready. You can't have a cookie. And Brandon threw himself on the floor and boom! Hit the wheelchair because it was about 4 inches higher off the floor than he was used to. As we were icing the welt, forget the little bruise anymore, I looked at my mother and I said, you know, the one good thing out of this is I bet he never does it again. Well, the next day, Brandon got mad. And we all watched Brandon as he sat down on the floor and got ready, stopped, got up and ran over to the couch and threw his head into the couch. As we stopped laughing, I looked at my mother and said, I guess he's always going to do that. Well, apparently he decided that wasn't very satisfying, and he never threw his head into anything again after that. But the point with this was that he had gotten so used to hitting his head against that wall, or the floor in this case, that he didn't feel it anymore until something harder or bigger came into the middle of his life. So what's the point? Let me tell you a second story that'll bring this more to an adult perspective. My husband Matt worked for a company. He was a help desk employee for a technical company up in Boca. When he started the job, he was working 40 hours a week, never got phone calls at home, everything was good. And over a period of time, he started getting phone calls at 2 and 3 in the morning because the overnight shift would have problems. And he grumbled about it, and he complained about it, and he'd get used to it. Then all of a sudden, they started sending him out of the country after he had already told them he wouldn't travel because he had small children, and since I don't drive, he didn't want to leave us home alone without transportation, so he told them he wouldn't travel. So the first time they sent him out of the country, he grumbled and he complained, but he went. And then they sent him again. They sent him again, and they sent him on short notice. And he'd complain, but he got to the point where it was just, okay, well, so this is the norm. So now we're getting calls at 2 and 3 in the morning, and he's getting sent out of the country at unexpected times of the year. And then he started having to spend longer and longer hours, and he would complain because he'd missed a kid's event, missed a concert, missed a game. But it became the norm. Till one day he came home and he hit the brick wall. He was miserable. And when he walked in the door one day with yet one more thing of, oh, guess what, they're sending me to Korea next week. I said, you are absolutely miserable right now. He says, no, I'm really tired, a little sleep deprived. He says, I'm okay. I said, no, you're not. I said, what do you like about your job right now? He stopped and he thought about it. He thought about it. Actually, I don't think I like anything about my job anymore right now. It's very frustrating. And I said, then make a change. Stop beating your head against a brick wall and go do something different. Or tell them that you're not going to do all the things that you don't want to be doing. Well, needless to say, he went and found another job and life was much happier at home. My point to you today, the moral of the story, if you will, is what are you banging your heads against that you've been doing for so long you don't even remember that there's a bruise in the middle of your forehead, folks? Is it your job? Is it your health? Is it the bills that you're trying to pay right now? We all have enough stress in our life. There's no question about that. I don't think anybody in this room is not dealing with stress because of the economy. Whether it's your retirement plans, whether it's because you've been laid off of work, or you're a business owner who's not bringing in enough money, there are plenty of reasons to be stressed. So stop, take inventory, figure out where you're banging your head right now, and figure out how to make a difference and a change in your life so that you can get rid of that bruise. Mr. Justin.